There's a ridiculous amount of indie games releasing this week, and I wanted to talk about some of them that actually caught my attention. Not all of them, because honestly, there's too many, and most won't be relevant in a month anyway, but the ones I'm genuinely curious about, or planning to check out myself. Starting with Lucid Blocks, because this one looks genuinely weird in the best possible way. It's a voxel sandbox survival game, which on the surface sounds like Minecraft with extra steps, but the execution looks way more surreal and unsettling than that comparison suggests. You're exploring this liminal space kind of world, these infinite procedurally generated environments both vertically and horizontally. Serene grasslands that shift into plasticky cities, abandoned warehouses, just these strange transitional spaces that feel off in ways that are hard to describe until you're actually in them. What makes it interesting to me is the unrestricted item fusion system. You're crafting things Minecraft style with blocks, but the environments and the creatures you encounter are just bizarre. The whole aesthetic is just uncanny enough that I want to see where it goes. Then there's 1348 exvoto, which I'm curious about but also a bit cautious on. It's a cinematic third-person action-adventure game set in medieval Italy. You're playing as a young knight on this dangerous journey, and the combat is supposedly inspired by historical European martial arts. Timing, positioning, technique, all that stuff you'd expect from a game trying to do realistic sword fighting. Now here's the thing, I played the demo, and I wasn't super enthusiastic about it if I'm being honest. There were technical problems, performance issues, things that made it hard to properly evaluate what the game was trying to do. But I'm still curious to see how the full release turns out, because the concept is solid, and medieval Italy during this period is an interesting setting that doesn't get explored much in games. So yeah, keeping an eye on it, but with tempered expectations based on what I've seen so far. Dyping Escape though, this is the kind of thing that makes me love indie games. On the surface it's just a typing game. You type commands, improve your speed, standard stuff. But then things start to get weird. There's psychological horror elements. You're following instructions from this mysterious eyeball game master, and every word you enter becomes reality inside the game's world. Sometimes it affects your actual computer itself, which is already crossing into territory that most games don't touch. The story unfolds through increasingly unsettling instructions that push you to question whether you should even be obeying the game at all. You're interacting with strange characters, uncovering hidden narrative fragments, and there's this darker mystery behind the game and its origins that gradually reveals itself. It's a very clever twist on the typing game concept, and exactly the kind of experimental weird shit that only indie developers are willing to try. Like, who else is going to make a typing game that might mess with your actual computer? That's the spirit I want to see. And speaking of weird, crabmeat. This one's a first-person survival horror game where you play as an indebted prisoner sent to harvest southern king crab in the Antarctic. You're operating this government-issued crabbing vessel, baiting traps, hauling them up, racing to meet your quota within 7 days. Standard fishing game setup. Except there are strange creatures beneath the icy waters that threaten both your ship and your survival. But here's what makes it interesting. It's a point-and-click game. You control everything via mouse only. A survival horror fishing game controlled entirely with pointing and clicking. That's such a bizarre combination of mechanics and genre that I'm genuinely curious what they're doing with it. And knowing how these things usually go, there's probably some deeper narrative buried in there about debt, labor, corporate exploitation, all wrapped up in this metaphor about harvesting crabs in hostile waters. I want to see where that goes. Galactic Vault is more straightforward but looks genuinely fun. It's a fast-paced roguelite FPS, where you're infiltrating high-security vaults to recover stolen technology while building increasingly powerful weapon configurations. Procedurally generated combat zones, constant movement, combining upgrades and abilities to create broken builds, all the stuff you want from this kind of game. It looks sleek, the weapon systems seem interesting, and honestly sometimes you just want a tight shooter with good progression systems, and this seems like it could deliver on that. John Carpenter's Toxic Commando is a cooperative first-person shooter, up to 4 players, battling massive hordes of undead, after some catastrophic experiment awakens this supernatural force called the Sludge God. Missions take place across large semi-open environments. You're scavenging equipment, using heavy weapons, driving vehicles through swarms of enemies. Very Left 4 Dead vibes, which is exactly what it's going for. Horde encounters that require teamwork, reviving allies, coordinating abilities, vehicles that can smash through zombies or traverse terrain. If you've got friends to play with, this seems like it could be a good time, and sometimes that's all you need. This one I'm excited about for completely different reasons. It's a side-scrolling puzzle platformer where you control a wolf that can transform into a princess, and you're guiding this blind prince through a dangerous forest. The gameplay alternates between forms. The princess leads the prince by hand and gives instructions. The wolf handles combat and environmental threats. But what really got my attention is the art style. Hand-sketched visuals, dark fairy tale theme, it just looks beautiful. Genuinely beautiful in a way that most games don't even attempt. And the premise is interesting too. The wolf accidentally blinded the prince, so now you're escorting him through this hostile world to find a witch who might restore his sight. There's weight to that narrative setup, and combined with the visual presentation, it feels like something special. I'm very curious to see how the story unfolds and whether the gameplay can match the aesthetic quality. Solateria is basically Sekiro meets Ori, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's a hand-drawn metroidvania where you're controlling this small fire warrior, searching for the primordial flame while battling a spreading shadow plague. Combat revolves around parrying. You have to read enemy attacks and counter with precision, very Sekiro-style mechanics. But the presentation is more in line with Ori or Hollow Knight. Hand-drawn art, interconnected biomes, upgrades that expand movement and combat options. There are king statues that grant powerful upgrades, core stones, and parts that let you customize abilities and play style. Memory fragments that reveal backstory. It's hitting all the Metroidvania beats while bringing that precise parry-based combat that makes encounters feel tense and rewarding when you nail the timing. If you're into this genre at all, this seems like an easy recommendation based on what I've seen. And finally, Haunted Lands, which is a retro action platformer with this throwback era art style that's extremely well done. You're traveling through cursed graveyards, crypts, haunted ruins, fighting waves of enemies and searching for artifacts. 6 completely unique playable characters, each with different abilities that affect combat and movement. Levels combine platforming challenges, traps, hidden areas that reward exploration, relics and upgrades that can drastically alter your character. What I appreciate about it is that it's not trying to be anything other than what it is. A well-executed retro action platformer with spooky vibes and solid mechanics. The art style is fantastic, the supernatural theme is consistent, and sometimes you just want a game that does one thing really well, rather than trying to be everything to everyone. This looks like it could be that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at this week. Not everything releasing, just the stuff that actually caught my attention for various reasons. If any of these sound interesting to you, they're all releasing within the next few days, so keep an eye out. And if you've played any of them, or you're planning to check them out, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.